Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious, and today we are going to be doing some unofficial English commentary of the Aichi Japan OP08 Championships. Now, if you watched the previous videos, and maybe you saw the title in the thumbnail, this is going to be a red-purple law mirror match. So we've seen both of these players play. Going to be an exciting one. They've got a couple different lists going on, some key differences in their lists. We saw the power of it in the previous video with Miss All Sunday being a big factor in the mirror match, so we'll see if that comes into play yet again. But before we go into this, I just want to make it clear this is not my content. This is not my stream. The official stream is located in the description below if you would like to watch the official one without me yapping. But for those of you that want to stay, welcome. Not only are we celebrating the 5,000 subscriber mark in this video, thank you all so much for the support, but the upcoming championships for Tokyo Daiichi area, I believe it's being called, is going to be happening shortly after I post this video. So expect sometime on Sunday, June 16th for the first video of that championships. I'm also going to be traveling back home 4,000 miles. I'm going to be traveling 4,000 miles, so there might be a slight pause in the uploads for it, but if only anything, it would just be a day. So let's stop the self-promotion. Let's get into this match. And it looks like the player right here is waiting to see what the opponent does before they decide whether to keep or mulligan. In his hand, we can see a Sanji blocker, Kid Killer. We see a Gordon. It looks like a Trafalgar Law blocker. And I think that card on the very right side is a Charlotte Pudding. So Charlotte Pudding we've seen in the past couple OP08 videos that we've done on this channel in the mirror match, could be a good card, so could be a hand that they want to keep. They've got some power minusing for some bottom decking to go on. They've got the pudding there, and also some rush in the Kid and Killer, but opting to mulligan. So both players doing a mulligan. That's very interesting. Wait to see kind of what their hands turn out to be in this one. You definitely want some kind of early plays. We did see in the last match that Black Maria was something that was played, even though Black Maria is something that a lot of players can probably tell can get bottom decked really easily, right, as a 2,000 power character. So I think probably what you're looking for if you've got this deck, I think maybe Sachi Penguin and Black Maria, if you see those two cards in combination, could be really good in this deck for the mirror. We'll have to wait and see, though, what these hands are. So both players putting out their life. The player on the left here, this is their hand, Reiju Otama, Pudding, Queen, and Law. Not a bad hand overall. You've got some inherent draw in there, especially with your characters that you can play off of your leader effects like the Reiju. You got a Pudding in there, which is a good card, some 2K, and some other natural draw in the Queen. On the right side, though, you do have a power minus, with the Gordon, a couple Puddings, a Sachi Penguin, like I had mentioned, and then a Eustace Captain Kid blocker from OP05. So very curious to see how each player's hands really determined this match. I think probably the left side may have a little bit stronger, in my opinion, with the Reiju and the Pudding, but the Sachi and Penguin could come up clutch for the player on the right. So let's wait and see how this goes. We're going to start now, and the player on the left going first, just doing a draw pass right there. Not going to be putting down a Gordon, and the same thing is going to go for the player on the right side, drawing a Kid and Killer for turns. So just like we saw kind of in previous games, swinging 5 right here, going to put down a Pudding on the field early and then pass the turn off, saying, okay, if you're going to bottom deck a character, you're going to have to use your Raise Max and Gordons now. So getting 2 Raise Max off the life and the draw going to be really, really good. Going to play this Pudding first after the player on the left takes a life. Get that Gordon, since you've got so many minus power characters in hand. to bottom deck that pudding and play the Sachi Penguin, get 2 more Dawn to put you back up to 4, and then through the pudding effect, get you 1 more as well. So again, ending with 4. So now at 5 Dawn, the player on the left is going to start off swinging and taking that life right there, taking a life early, but you don't have too much counter in hand, honestly, as the player on the left. So especially for this, or I'm sorry, the player on the right not having much counters. So seeing this queen right here, going to be drawing 2 and trashing 1. Got a Sanji, a nice 2 Sanjis right there, so 2 2Ks overall. Let's see exactly what they pitch. I think they're probably aiming for some kind of like Kid and Killer or Zoro rush card. You really want to put on the pressure because your opponent is showing that you do not have any counter in hand for sure. So thinking about pitching an Otama, pitching that 2K, you do have a pretty good hand overall on this. I wouldn't hate as well pitching the Law, but maybe the Otama is something that you're like, you know what, this, I've got enough 2Ks in my hand, I will go off in with this. And although you can't bottom deck anything right here, you still can potentially play something for this leader effect. So thinking about if that's the best play possible, really troublesome not having a pudding on the field or a Sachi Penguin in hand, because you're not going to be getting this Dawn back like the other player. No matter what you put down, you will be at 1 Dawn at the end of the turn. So we'll see if this leader effect playing the Sanji, remember, when you're less than 2 Dawn than your opponent, that Sanji becomes a 3 cost in hand. So we'll see if this heavy usage of the Dawn affects them later in the match. 6 Dawn now for the player on the right side. The player on the right side did get a Zoro, I believe it was, or the Otama, one of the two. But either way, going to be starting off with a 5K swing. Something that we see a lot in these red-purple Law mirrors is a lot of 5K leader swings to start out the turn. Honestly, in the couple last videos that we've watched in the mirror matches, 5K swing Law leaders have been the start of almost every turn. So going to be pitching a 1K counter on that Law, putting them to 5 cards in hand over on the left side. So thinking about playing their own Kid, the Eustace Captain Kid, is going to be nice for being able to get another Dawn back from your leader effect. And even though it's going to get bottom decked pretty easily, I don't actually hate that play overall, because again, it allows you to get more Dawn back into the field of play. So let's see exactly where they decide to go. You will, if you play the Eustace Captain Kid, have an extra Dawn to be able to minus power on one of these 2 blockers on the field to be able to bottom deck. Then you can go ahead and play your Zoro or Kid and Killer. I think Zoro is probably the better option because your opponent's at 3 life right now. With this 5K swing from Sachi and Penguin, though, they will take that life getting a pudding. And then now you could play the Kid and Killer if you want to, because they're at 2 life. So playing another one with the Gordon alongside that Kid, going to be doing the bottom effect on the Sanji. I think Sanji's probably a good one to get away in there out of the 2, and then through the leader effect, going to be playing the Zoro. So starting off with the Zoro first and getting 2 more Dawn, does have 1 Dawn active left because of that Eustace Captain Kid, and potentially going to be swinging 6 with this Zoro. Thinking about whether or not they want to keep this 1 Dawn open, they could be fainting a Rad Beam in there, or maybe thinking about preemptively playing the Raise Max. We have seen in previous rounds that even though, you know, Law is very, very easily able to bottom deck Gordon and Raise Max, at the end of a turn after using leader effect, we have seen these Law players play down these Raise Maxes preemptively to really say, okay, you need to get rid of this, or I'm going to get rid of something on my next turn, and therefore is another bigger body like the Eustace Captain Kid or the Zoro to keep on the field. So they will play down that Raise Max preemptively, and just like this player on the right did in the top 4 match, not choosing to swing with all of their bodies. So that Zoro will stay active, not swing. It would be a free block on the queen, so especially because you wanted to play the raise max, I don't hate this play overall that they made. And so the player on the left starting out with 5k swing, going to be countered out real quick. Thinking about where they want to go, they're only at 3 Dawn right here. So really, you just have 2 more Dawn to work with if you play a Gordon and bottom deck. Thinking about playing a Pudding, and you could play that Pudding, be able to bottom deck the raise max, right? And then play down another bunny on top of that, like the other blocker. Sanji could be nice in your hand. Or play the Reiju. The Reiju would allow you to draw 2 cards, I believe, because you play the Pudding, you have 6 cards in hand, and then the Reiju would be 2 more off the draw because you had 5 and less Dawn than your opponent. So you would be able to get a Dawn back through the Pudding, and then next turn you would still be at 3, so really tough spot on the kind of a Dawn resources, you know, like managing their Dawn resources is what I was trying to say. So going to do that exact play that I mentioned, grabbing a Zoro, a Rush Zoro, and an Otama. The Rush Zoro could be good for the next turn to continue to get the pressure because you're trying to keep up with these bodies, and that raise max will go to the bottom, but that means that the useless Captain Kid will stay on the field. So we'll see exactly who's got the advantage after this. Only 2 cards in hand for the right side in comparison to 7 now, I believe, for the left. So even though the player on the left has only 1 Dawn at the end of this turn, will have card advantage, so could be useful overall. So I think right now they're thinking whether or not they want to swing with the queen because they don't have any Dawn to be able to do. And really on the queen, it's a matter of, do you think you're potentially going to be in trouble, right? Is this queen going to get bottom decked? Because if they play a Gordon or a raise max right here without swinging the queen, you're going to get little to no value off of this queen. So especially because you are not really keeping up as much with the pacing of bodies, could be trouble. So this 6k swing on the queen looks like it's going into the Sachi and Penguin, and the player on the right could counter out of this. They could use the Otama to counter out. So could be something that we see them do in here or let it be knocked out. I think they're trying to think of their next turn and their opponent's next turn, what they would likely bottom deck if they either allowed this Sachi Penguin to get KO'd or use the counter to save the Sachi and Penguin. You would only have 1 card in hand, 2 off of the draw, assuming that you don't have a Reiju on your top deck to be able to draw more cards. And I don't even think you're going to be under the amount of Dawn as the player on the left in your next turn, no matter what you do. So I don't even think a Reiju would be able to have you draw cards. The only thing that would let you draw cards, I believe, is queen in this top deck going into the player on the right's next turn. So we'll see if they decide to counter with the Otama or block. I do think that with the couple bodies here, and you have a blocker overall, the struggle with this, if you had another blocker in your hand, right, if this Kid and Killer was instead a queen, I think they would be much easier of a decision, but because you only have 1 blocker, it makes it really tough overall going into now your 7 Dawn turn. So this top deck, after letting the Sachi and Penguin get KO'd, is a Miss All Sunday. The Miss All Sunday we saw did really, really nice things in the mirror match in top 4, and at 7 Dawn, we could use the 5 to play the Miss All Sunday and be able to rest the Dawn ramp and also draw a card, which could be really nice. That card could be something that gives us an advantage, right? Because the card Miss All Sunday in hand right now, you have 2 non-counter cards, so there's a likely chance that the Miss All Sunday is going to replace itself with a counter card. So I do like this play of getting the Miss All Sunday is going to be pretty nice. And going to be drawing a Otama. Okay, so that's a 2k counter. Could help you survive the next attack. And through the leader effect, you could do a little bit of swinging in this right now. So I would think that maybe like swinging with the pudding could be really good. You're so far ahead in Dawn and you've got such a strong stance in Dawn right now that I think maybe swinging with the pudding, you don't really care if it gets knocked out entirely. So maybe going in with a 5K swing at lead, maybe trying to go 6K at the queen or something like that. Could be tough though, and maybe you don't want to do that kind of strategy. I think you're really trying to get rid of the queen right now. There could be another option in here with one Dawn open. You could use the Otama to minus power on the Reiju, right? And if you're able to get that KO on the queen through the Eustace Captain Kidd or attaching a Dawn to something like the Zoro and swinging, you would then be able to get rid of both of those bodies overall, even though it would at your expense give up a 2K counter. But I think honestly, especially with the hand that the player on the left has got, they would definitely counter out of that. So swinging 7, I don't know exactly where. Player on the left having 4 2Ks in hand, in those 2 Otamas and 2 Sanjis overall. So no Otama being played, no bottom decking happening of a player on the left's character, but could still use leader effect to play something like Kid and Killer and get another swing or just establish the body overall. So we'll see where they go in this one. It looks like they are going at life and going to take it overall. Going to be a Black Maria, another 2K getting in this hand. The defense is going to be very strong here shortly. A top deck purple 4-drop Law would be super nice in this situation for the player on the right in their next turn to be able to get a couple of those cards, especially because you now have more odds to hit a double 2K than you did before. So let's see where they go in here. Thinking about playing that Kid and Killer again, I think off of the leader effect, you would get 2 Dawn back if you use the leader effect, and decides to pass, not playing the Kid and Killer right now on here, or swing with the Zoro. I don't know if I actually hate this play. He's, once again, just like in the top 4 match, just being really, really patient, right? Just swinging with the leader, snagging a life, and forcing the opponent to start going at his life, right? So really just trying to save that Kid and Killer for the final turn when you have so much Dawn to try to get around all of these cards that the player on the left has in hand. You might be able to do it. So only 3 Dawn for the left, swinging 5 at lead right now. So trying to think whether or not countering with the Otama or blocking with the Queen is effective. We did see in the top 4 match that after blocking either from the Queen or the Kid, the other player attached a ton of Dawn and swung at the rested blockers. So could be a strategy that this player on the right is thinking about. But off the life, getting another 2K, you're definitely not dying in this turn. So you are going to maybe be trying to go for game in this next turn, try to hit for lethal, even though the player on the left, I didn't even notice, top decked another 2K in the Sachian Penguin. Not something that's completely unusual for this deck. You may be thinking that there's a lot of 2Ks that this player on the left is getting in their hand. But remember, throughout this tournament and through Hiroshima as well, Red Purple Law decks have been playing 16 2Ks in their decks. So going to start off swinging 5 at lead, and we'll see if the player on the right either decides to take it or keep the block going on the Eustace Captain Kidd. It looks like they're thinking about pitching something like the Sachian Penguin. Only good for a 2K at this point because you have so much Dawn open. Could be a body if you want, but the body, you probably wouldn't have the defense in your next turn to be able to survive because of the lack of card draw and card advantage in your hand. So it could be a little tough. Thinking about blocking as well, the block again would be free, would not cost you any cards at all, and potentially try to persuade the player on the left to swing with the queen into the Eustace Captain Kidd, but they're going to stop that with a 2K on the Sachi Penguin, and we move into the next turn here. So, or I'm sorry, the continuation on the left side, moving into the next phase of the player on the left's turn. So still 3 Dawn open right now. We'll see where they go, and it looks like they are going to be playing a Gordon and minusing the Kidd. Going to be swinging 5 right here. This is a tricky scenario at this point, because originally I was like, yes, it's a free block on your Eustace Captain Kidd. But with the minusing power on the Kidd, if you do block with it, it would die. So trying to see what they could do. Going to be minusing and bottom decking as well, or preemptively primarily playing the Gordon, just similarly how the player did on the left side, or the right side earlier in the game with the Raise Max. So 1 life each at this point, 3 2Ks in the trash, only 2 cards in hand. Maybe trying to think whether or not they swing with the Kidd, but first they are going to potentially play a character on the field through this leader effect. So I think they're thinking between the the Black Maria. The Black Maria would actually be really interesting in this phase, because you would be able to keep all 5 Dawn through the Black Maria effect. You have so many 2Ks in hand. You have 5 other 2Ks that playing down this Black Maria would be able to seal so much Dawn at the beginning of next turn. You would be at 7 Dawn overall next turn, starting this turn with only 3, and through the pudding effect, you are going to go up to 8 Dawn next turn. Absolutely heads up play playing that Black Maria. I didn't even think about that potential possibility, as the player on the left, or the right side, hits 10 Dawn now in this turn. Now, especially with the addition of all this Dawn, the player on the right side is going to have to go after lethal in this turn. And so this 7K swing right here from the player on the right on the leader is prompting potentially a block overall from the queen. So really, really interesting spot right here. Definitely has card advantage to be able to do it. Another rush character in the Zoro to potentially get another swing in. The player on the right side did get a 2K Sanji off the top in this turn. So another top deck, but with only 4K worth of counter, might not be enough to stop at this point. So the block is going to go and immediately in the bin. Looks like going to be attaching to, swinging another 7 with the Miss All Sunday. So we'll see where they decide to go in here. If I had to, it's really tough to think about what the player on the left is going to do for the rest of the turn. Could play that Kidd in Killer, and then through leader effect play the Sanji, or in the other order, it's unsure, and going to be taking a life right there. So maybe preemptively thinking that there's no stuff in hand, and going to be a 6 swing, so 11,000 power, going to be countering out of that and bottom decking that card to play the Kidd and Killer, swinging 7, and with 2Ks on the Sanji and Otama, going to be passing the turn, because that is the end. The player on the left smiling and attaching 2 to the Reiju, going to be getting those cards right there, pitching the Otama and the Sanji and thinking about what they could do on this. Going to be taking a life. Oh, the cards are off the screen. My apologies. And so there's the 2Ks right there. Excellent, excellent job after attaching the rest of the leader. And the player on the left ends up winning with their version of the Red Purple Law. An absolutely exciting game. You can see the enthusiasm on the players' faces. An exciting one, in my opinion. Very, very good, especially in terms of the math, in terms of choosing when to swing, not to swing, playing down specific characters. Really, in my opinion, came down to the card draw advantage that the player on the left side had. Found the queen early to be able to draw cards, found the Reiju early to be able to draw cards. Really just cemented being able to have so many cards in hand, especially at the end, to defend against that final turn from the player on the right and all of those swings. Got out an 11k tack from the Zoro there. So really, really good job in my opinion. But before we head out of here, let's look at the different players lists. So starting off with the player on the left, this is the, what I would say, wackier of the two lists in this video. So this one, instead of kind of your more vanilla version, spreading out a little bit in terms of the different cards that you can include in this deck, right? Instead of playing 4 Sanjis like we see in a lot of these red-purple law decks, ends up playing 2 Ein, 2 Miss All Sunday, only 2 Trafalgar Laws, and then also 2 Ein as well. The Ein is great for a unconditional ramp that a lot of these decks sometimes get in trouble with, right? If you have too much Dawn for the Sachi Penguin, if you don't have enough Dawn for the Miss All Sunday, could be really, really nice for the Ein to come in and be able to just ramp a Dawn there for you if you don't have something like the Black Maria. So really, really cool list overall, in my opinion. I do like this list more than the winning list, even though this did end up losing because I like Miss All Sunday a ton. I really think the game is unquestionably like swayed much more in your favor, especially if a trigger hits for Miss All Sunday, but it didn't come up in that scenario. It is only a 2-card addition in there, so not very likely to be in your life at any point. But for the rest of this, the Raise Max, Otama, Gordon, Pudding, Reiju, Maria, Queen, all 4, as we see very typically, the Sachi and Penguin also being at 4, Kid and Killer at 4. So just Red Purple Law, just with its flexibility, even though it has a skeleton for sure of changing up and adding these different tech cards, did end up working out for the player on the right side, even though they lost. And now here's the winning list from the tournament. If you heard in previous videos when we watched this player in previous games, you will maybe remember me saying that this, in my opinion, is the most vanilla version of the deck, right? Just 4 ofs, all of these important pieces in the Otama, Gordon, Raise Max, Kid Killer, Queen, Sachi Penguin, Law, Kid, Reiju, Sanji, Pudding, Black Maria, all cards that we would really expect to see 4 ofs in this deck. And then with the final 2 slots being that Roronoa Zoro, a good card overall. We saw it have some influence in that game, but could just be a very nice addition to the deck to be able to put a little bit more pressure when you're a little bit more lacking overall. And maybe something to easily pitch off of something like the Perona, right? If you face a Gecko deck, an OP06 Black Gecko deck, or maybe off of the Queen. If you use Queen and draw a couple cards, could be just an easy card to get off of that as well. Not a huge difficult decision. So that's going to be all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, we will cover the next championships in tomorrow's video. So if it is June 16th by the time that you're watching this, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or actually, no, will it be Eastern Standard Time? Yeah, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, June 16th. Check the channel. Check out that video. It will be up at that point. I will record it on Saturday and try to get through a lot of these videos so that we can get them out in consecutive days and not fall behind. Thank you again so much for watching. Hope you enjoy more. OP07 content is on the horizon, and I thank you again for 5,000 subscribers. Hoping to maybe potentially hit 10,000 by the end of the year. That would be a cool one.